Hello, everybody. Justin Jackson here, and welcome to the msuwma podcast. In today's episode, I talked to Scott Frank, founder of Stone Steps Financial, a financial planning and investment management firm located in San Diego, California. Scott holds the designations of Chartered Financial Analyst, Certified Financial Planner, and Registered Life Planner. Scott believes strongly in giving back to the community as well as his profession, hence him coming on and having this conversation with me. Scott co-hosts a weekly podcast called Real Personal Finance and serves on the Leadership Development Committee for the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors. Scott was named to the Investment News 40 Under 40 in 2019. He has also contributed numerous articles on personal finance for the Los Angeles Times, CNBC, the Washington Post, and USA Today. I really enjoyed this episode, and I think you will too. All right, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to complete the San Diego Trilogy. First I had Taylor Schulte on, and then I had Stephen Fox, and now I have you. So got a lot of San Diego the last 3 episodes.
Well, I'm in good company. I hope I can be up to their standard. We shall see.
So can you start off by telling us, your backstory? Starting as a kid growing up, going to college, did you always want to be a financial advisor? Is this something you stumbled into?
I had no idea I wanted to be a financial advisor. I grew up in Indianapolis on the northeast side, a little town called Noblesville. Go Millers. When I grew up, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be an IndyCar driver because that was
nice.
Like the sport around town, and I wasn't going to be a basketball player because I was too small. But so I went to University of Colorado. My grandfather taught me how to ski on the little hills of Michigan, especially up near like Kalamazoo, Timber Ridge.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with skiing. So I decided I wanted to go to University of Colorado to go to school so I could get in like 50 to 60 days a year while I was there. And I did. I should technically be a doctor based on the number of years I was in undergrad. Which is a different conversation for a different day. Yeah. But I went to University of Colorado by way of the community college there because you had to emancipate yourself from your parents to not pay out-of-state tuition, which was at the time, I think like the second highest nationally for a public university. It was just insane. So I spent a lot of time working and doing whatnot. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do in college. And then I stumbled upon finance, which I really liked. So I got a degree in corporate finance because they didn't offer personal financial planning at the time. And then interviews were coming around for senior year. And luckily, Fisher Investments came through. And I interviewed with Fisher Investments. And so my first job out of school was at one of the largest registered investment advisory firms in the country. And I had no idea what a registered investment advisory firm was.
Wow. So talk about skiing for a second. I mean, did you just like it a lot? Or were you trying to make it in a circuit? Like, what were you trying to do?
No. I was never any good like that. I just loved being in the mountains.
That's awesome.
So I would spend anywhere between like 50 to 60 days on the mountain, just with friends having a good time.
Oh yeah, I'm from Michigan, so obviously I've done a lot of skiing in Michigan, but it's got to be nothing compared to Colorado.
Yeah, so when we grew up as kids, we would go up to Boyne Highlands and Nubs Knob, and we'd go up there for Christmas. And I remember the first Christmas I came home from Colorado, we went up to Nubs Knob for like the week of vacation. And I'd already been skiing back in Colorado, and my perspective totally changed because I remember like jump stepping down the Black Diamond on the front face of Nubs Knob. I can't remember the name of it, but when I came back, I think I did 2 turns.
Wow.
I was at the bottom of it, and I was like, oh, I guess perspective matters. Like, this is not a big hill. But when growing up, it was all I knew. I loved it.
Yeah, I love skiing. I used to ski a lot more. I actually broke my hip, so now stopping and cutting is kind of a problem. So maybe if I just went straight down, it'd be fine.
That's one way to do it. You might break the other hip.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can get some rehab and get back on the mountain though.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about, your first job at Fisher's? Can you explain kind of what your role was and what it was like entering the industry?
Yeah, so I did inside sales there, which was an
Nice.
eye-opening. The experience at Fisher that was interesting was it taught me that the average advisor, the advisor like what I am now, um, at first when they start, they wear all the hats, they do all the work, right?
Yeah.
So you're the servicing advisor, you're the marketer, you're the compliance, you're the client service person, you're doing the paperwork. Fisher looked at it and went like, "This is silly. Like, let's move these positions into the proper place." And so one of the positions was someone reaches out for some marketing material. We're going to follow up with you every 90 days or so and see if you want to sit down and chat with us. And that was my job. And it was a tough job. It
Yeah.
wasn't a job that I loved, but it got me into an industry that I eventually loved. Because by being there, I saw an amazing system and how they grew their business. And I also saw that I wanted to do more than just manage money. So that helped me find my way to my next job.
So what was your day to day like? I mean, were you making 300 calls a day on
Yeah, like I
warm
don't remember if
leads?
it was 300, but it was a lot of calls. It was all about setting appointments. Was my first job. That was the job. Now that's not to say that has to be your job now.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure they still have that role there. I think I'd look for something else if I was coming out of a CFP type program.
So how did you get into financial planning? Like, what was the next step?
Yep. So from there, my wife and I, we lived up in the Bay Area at the time. We decided we wanted to move to San Diego. This is where my wife's family would spend all their summers. She grew up in Tucson. Um, and we had an opportunity. I met with an advisor down here who had a smaller firm. So when I left Fisher, I think we brought in around like $300 million that month that I left in new assets. And I went to a firm that had like $220 million in assets total. So it was
Yeah.
a very big shift. And it was kind of the firm there with another registered investment advisory firm, great place to work. And there I got to learn kind of how to do all the work, right, of an advisory practice. I was doing the paperwork and helping with planning and helping with asset allocations and trading and kind of doing all of the things that the advisor needed support with was my role there. And I was there for, and also helped do sales eventually as well. I was there for almost 8 years. And while I was there, I got my CFP and my CFA. So just kept learning and growing. We served kind of what I would call like the working wealthy. So it's like the $1 to $2 million households who were near retirement and needed help with their money.
So
And we
like
were
the millionaire next door types?
yeah, exactly. And we
Okay.
were mainly focused on, and it's very similar for the firms of that era, but we were mainly focused on investment management first, and then we did planning as well, right? But planning was not the thing that we did. Um, so from there, I eventually got to the point where I decided I want to do my own thing. And when I went and launched my own firm, I decided that I wanted the focus to be financial planning, and investment management would be a component of financial planning. So that's what we do now at Stone Steps.
So if you think about the industry, it's like 80, 90% attrition rate. I don't know what it is. It's something really high. Those first couple of years, I think most people would go into that inside sales job and go, this sucks, and stop based off of, these kind of numbers that get
Yeah.
thrown around. I mean, what was the thing that kind of kept you in the industry? Like, did you just end up in a good firm? Did they give you more comfortable salary once you arrived at the new firm?
So yeah, I mean, I think all initial jobs
Yeah.
in firms are rarely what you want them to be, right?
Yeah.
I think the key is to look for the opportunities that you want and align
Hmm.
yourself in the way with firms that will help you grow. And honestly, I was lucky enough at Fisher. Had I stayed, I would have been moving to another department and learning a whole new trade rather
Okay.
quickly. So I wouldn't have been staying necessarily in sales if I didn't want to. So that's one thing, is look for the opportunities inside a firm. And then the larger the firm, the more likely you have the ability to get specific knowledge on a specific thing. But by going to the smaller firm that I went to, I got to learn a whole lot of things about everything, which some people either sink or swim with that as well, right? Because that's kind of, it's the other side of it is like, I went from doing one thing all the time every day. I knew what I had to do. I knew what my target was, to coming in and I could do anything that day because I didn't know what I needed to do yet, depended on what the clients needed. So it's just a matter of finding good people to work with and work under, I think is really helpful at first.
Okay. So could you tell us about your designations? So you're CFP, CFA, and you're also a registered life planner. Do you mind going through the backstory of, how you got each and every one of those and why you got each of those?
Yeah, sure. So when I was when I started at the smaller firm, I thought for sure, and actually I was starting the process before I went there, but I thought in my mind I was like, man, I want to manage like big institutional money. When I first came out of college, is what I wanted to be doing. And so to do that, every time I would look at a prospectus, I would see CFA behind the name of the person doing that work. So I looked into that program and decided to go after that first. And so I went through the CFA program, levels 1, 2, and 3, and I got to take level 2 3 times. Level 1 I passed in December, and then I thought like, oh, level 2 can't be that bad. I'll just go ahead and do that. Happened to be buying a house and getting married at the same time. So really bombed that one, but kind of like passed that one off. I was like, that's fine. I had the shortness of time. I allowed myself to say that was okay. The next year I tried really hard and still failed. So it's a bear of a test. And then the third year I did make it through. And then the third, level 3 is very similar for wealth. It really leans towards wealth management. So it was really suited for the work I was already doing. So that ended up not being a problem.
So were you doing asset management at that time, or were you?
We were doing asset management, wealth management for our clients at that time. So once I had that, I was still thinking like, oh, it'd be fun to try to do institutional stuff. And then I was kicking around with like talking to people who were in the business on the institutional side. And they were like, well, CFA is nice, but if you really want to get into these jobs, you really need to be going and getting like an MBA and, all that jazz, because it's all about kind of who you know rather than necessarily what you know. So I actually went and took the GMAT. I got a score that would have let me go apply to all the top 10 business schools. But my wife and I were expecting our first child. And we were looking at what type of life we actually wanted to build. And what we wanted to stay in San Diego. And there's not a lot of wealth management firms, like asset management, institutional firms in San Diego. So it didn't really make sense for me to go get an MBA somewhere, to move to a major market, to go do institutional asset management, where I ultimately want to come back to San Diego. So I kind of left that off. And then I went and challenged the CFP exam to get the CFP. And then I knew like I wanted to start my own firm. So I, in short order, started my own firm with those 2 designations. Once I had those designations, I thought like, this is it. I'm done. I know what I need to do now, right? Like you can come in as a client. I know everything that you need to apply technically. So I now know how to do planning and this is going to be easy. And so that's what I did. People would come in, give me your information. I'm going to give you this plan. You go and do all this stuff, and now you're going to be great. There's only one problem. People weren't following through. And so I thought they were bad clients.
Were they bad clients?
Well, no, it turns out they weren't. But at the time you think like, look, I literally told you what to go do. All you have to do is do this and you're going to be great. But they wouldn't act on it. And so that's what led me to learn more about listening, which is the registered life planner designation. It's truly all about active listening and empathy and learning how to be with people and allow people to be fully heard and for them to hear themselves so that they can act on what's most important to them. So an interesting thing is I think it was Russ Allen Prince had an article in, I think it was Financial Planning Magazine, December of last year. And it looked at, for comprehensive financial planning, what percentage of people follow through on their plans. And I might be misquoting it, but it was something to the effect of 20% of those people who have a plan do less than 80% of the time.
Wow.
So like you think of like the amount of stuff that they're told to go do, the majority of it, they've never even come close to doing. And that was really eye-opening, right? Yeah. So that was kind of after the fact that I'd had the registered life planning designation. But the registered life planning designation is truly all about, like, if you think about, Carl Richards has a great Venn diagram where he says like your money and your life, and those are kind of the 2 circles. And so the thing that I'll joke with him is like you're missing a circle, and the circle that's missing are vision and values. because all too often people get focused on the life that we're living already. And I kind of think of that like, you might be a touch young for this, but like when I was in high school, you had like a 6-disc CD changer, right? And you'd like burn your own CDs on it and like put it in there. And then you kind of forget what you had for a playlist. And it's like, that's kind of what we do in life. We have this brain that is taking all these things that we love and do and just burning it in, and it becomes what we do. And we don't really think about it anymore. And so what the registered life planning designation does is it creates a process where we go through with the client a few steps to look at what truly matters most to you. Like where should we be allocating your time, your money, your energy, and your talent? And let's look at that before we look at what you should do with your money.
Nice.
Because if we know what matters most to you, we can prioritize the first things first, and then we can help you go act on those things as quickly as possible.
Okay. So what does a first meeting with you look like if I'm a prospective client or, a client that you recently signed?
Yep, it's a lot of listening on my part and a lot of talking for them.
So how do you become a good listener? I mean, I know I'm not the best listener. I mean, I made a podcast so I could talk more. So
absolutely.
So how do you become a good listener?
You can actually practice the skill of listening, because there's a few things that happen, and it honestly is. When I help, I've been lucky enough to be able to assist with some of the trainings for the Kinder Institute of Life Planning, which is where I learned the evoke process and became a registered life planner. But I kind of joke with the trainees that what you're doing here is you're unlearning everything that you've already learned, right? Okay. Because you need to have the technical skill and ability to help people. But especially for younger advisors, the thing that we want to do and it's kind of almost a touch of an imposter syndrome thing. I remember it well. There's a 65-year-old sitting across the table from me, or a Zoom call here. I need to come at them with all of the information that I have to show them how smart I am. That's me. Right. That's an I, me, mine. That's me thinking about how I need to prove my ego. Like, am I going to be able to do this? For the client, they don't really need that. What they need is they need us to help them solve their problems. But if we don't ever listen to them, how are we going to solve their problems? Right. And it's really about listening deeply. So the first meeting, an exploration meeting, is really the game that I think of is, I just imagine that if you were having the conversation with me, the thing that I'm thinking about in my mind is you have 10 marbles in your pocket, and my goal for this meeting is to give you the space to bring out all of your marbles. And I'm not going to judge you about any of them. I'm not going to, that third one, I'm not going to say like, wow, you used to go skiing in Michigan too? Because then what I just said to you was the first two weren't interesting to me, and whatever you give me after, I probably don't care about either, but I love that you love skiing just like I do. That again became about me, right? It's all about the client. What matters most to them? Let them bring those things out. And the interesting thing is, oftentimes there are things that they haven't really revealed to other people. We call them like hidden treasures. Like, what are the things that they really are longing for, but they're not willing to share very often? That's gold, because that's what they ultimately probably want in their life. We want to help them get that.
Yeah, and most people probably aren't. I mean, most people aren't that mindful, just as a rule, and about many things in life. I mean, do you find people discovering things about themselves or stuff that they haven't really articulated in their own minds?
So I wouldn't say that they haven't articulated about themselves, because they probably have.
Okay.
But often in life, we have people shooting on us, right? So other people tell you what you should do or what you should be or what you should or shouldn't buy. And it's, about what other people think about. And you maybe decide, well, this clearly isn't something for me. What you will see with couples is oftentimes when you allow this this space for people to be fully heard, I've had spouses turn to one another and say, I didn't know that about you. Right? Which is actually pretty common. It can be pretty common because like my wife and I have been together for 18 years. So, just like that CD player I was joking about earlier, like my vision of who my wife is like kind of becomes ingrained and normal. And like, I just get used to it. And if she changes or something becomes more important to her, I may not notice it.
Yeah.
So what an amazing moment for couples to come together and see what a fulfilled life looks like to each spouse, so they can support each other in moving forward in their lives.
So how does an institutional asset manager type of mind become so people oriented? I mean, this seems like the touchy feely kind of side of financial planning. Like you're dealing with people, you're dealing with lives, you're dealing with emotions. I mean, how are you? Would you say you're right brain and left brain, or what do you think you favor more?
I think I am a bit of both, but I will say that personal money management. Tim Maurer would say that personal money management is 90% personal and 10% finance.
Do you agree with that?
There's a tremendous amount of truth to that,
right?
So like we can think like our job is to be. So the shift that happened for me, I'll tell you, is I used to think that my job as a planner was to be the hero for my clients. My job is to show up and tell you what to do. I've got this for you. What I realized was, because they weren't following through, it's not about us being the hero at all. It's about me being the guide for them. But what I have to do is I have to learn how to listen really, really well to know what really matters to them. So then I can take those tools out of my backpack, all that technical knowledge, and put it to work for them in a way that helps them live their best life. That was the shift that happened.
So what do you think your client's perception is of you? I mean, do they think of you as like, of course he knows the things, but we have a very good personal relationship? I mean, how do you present yourself? Are you more of the person first, or are you the advisor first?
So I'm always the guide.
Yeah. Okay.
But I never lead with technical knowledge.
Right.
So I kind of think of it like, and it's kind of part of it is our profession's not yet truly a profession, but it's very rare for my primary care doctor to walk in and start spouting off all of this technical knowledge that he has. Right. He walks in and asks me how I'm doing and what brings me here today. And he listens. And then he uses his technical knowledge. And I feel like, especially for younger planners, sometimes we want to step in and just go straight to the technical, which doesn't really help the client solve the problem. And if you speak to them in technical speak, it's really not that helpful because they don't know it. If they did, they wouldn't be here.
Right.
So I view my job as to be a guide for them and to simplify it as best I can so that they can make the next best step in their life. And then we come back and do it again and again and again.
So being a financial advisor, I mean, do you think this is the lack of establishment as far as being a profession? I mean, I guess you think of medicine and accounting, it goes back thousands of years. And financial planning was made like the 80s. Do you think if there was like
there's more back further than that? We do have the 1940 Act, the Registered Investment Advisors Act under. So it's been around for a little while, but you're right. It's a much newer profession.
Yeah. Okay. So it's it's a newer profession.
Yeah.
But do you think that kind of maybe that lack of confidence is why young advisors feel like they have to regurgitate kind of everything and get those points across? Like, what do you think is going on there inside of young advisors' heads?
I'll tell you, I can't tell you what goes on in other people's heads, but I can tell you what went on in my head was I thought I had to prove something.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes when we think we have to prove something, that's ego and an I, me, mine thought happening. And if instead we can stop thinking about those things and we can focus on the client and helping them, we typically get further faster. But it's a very tough lesson to learn. And even though I'm saying this to you right now, and a lot of younger advisors may hear this, it will still take a long time to learn.
So can you tell us about Stone Steps Financial? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but what was the thought process behind starting your own firm? Like, why did you decide to make that jump?
Yep. So I decided to make that jump because I wanted to have control over my own destiny. And I say that with, I just want to be really clear. This would not have been possible had it not been for my wife. My wife worked in a corporate job while we started Stone Steps, and it took much longer to start Stone Steps than we thought it would. But now that where we are, we can, it's a sustainable firm that's grown and doing very well and helping serve the clients that we want to help serve. So the reason that I did it was, I kind of looked at, I loved my old firm and where I was, but in the end, I wanted to own something, and I didn't really see that happening at my old firm. So I decided to go start my own because I looked, the costs of starting a firm now are very low
Right.
relative to what they were when I started in the industry. Um, the issue is I still think you want to have some experience before you go start your own thing because there's a lot of challenges with learning how to do great planning, learning how to use all the systems, and then learning how to sell and how to build. There's a lot of components to running your own business. But I'm really glad I did it.
So you guys have very neat branding. I don't know how to say that. Very neat branding. I like it. You got a casual kind of feel. Feels very like human. It doesn't feel like this big institutional organization. Like, was that intentional when you're
Yes.
making your brand?
Yes, absolutely. They're not going to see the shirt I'm wearing right now, but I'm wearing a button-down flannel, right? I will meet my clients this way. This is my firm has brick walls and like modern furniture in it, and it's designed to be a family room when we meet with clients when COVID's not happening, right? We designed the firm to be who we are, right? This is not a stuffy paneled suit wearing firm. And guess what? There are people who will be turned away from that, and that's totally okay. We are who we are, and if people like that and they want to be spoken to directly and deliberately and listened to, then they're going to come talk to us. And if they want something else, they'll go somewhere else. Nothing wrong with that.
Wow, that's really interesting. It's kind of neat to see the advisors in the AGC. That seems to be kind of a commonality. Like, not that everybody's kind of the commonality is that we don't all have everything in common. Like, we all kind of have our own unique thing. So I think that's really kind of neat to see that happening.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like the kind of if there's a niche of stone steps, it's really that people want to be truly listened to. They really want to step into who they're meant to be. And then we're kind of getting a little, the demographic niche that's popping up is kind of tech and life sciences, work executive, mid-level type people.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as a business owner and advisor, you have a lot of balls in the air. Like, how do you balance your own personal, health, wealth, happiness, relationships with your family? How do you manage all of that? Like, what's your personal process?
Yep. So we do a few things. We only meet with clients on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Mondays are planning days, and Fridays are days for wrap up or things like this. For me personally, to be in shape and stay in touch with my friends, I surf every morning at dawn. There's consistently 4 of us and sometimes up to 8 of us, but it's just the same consistent people showing up every day, which is really important. And then for the kids and my wife, we always make sure we make time for each other. We're always home for dinner and not traveling all that often.
So is it hard for you to, I mean, in the process of starting a company and stuff, was it hard for you to make the prioritization of surfing in the morning? Like, or was that clear to you that, maintaining these things is what will allow me to be successful in my
I
career?
wish I could tell you I figured that out from go, but
Yeah.
that's been a process. Yeah. But it's something that I see in myself, in my friends, and in my clients, because it's a human thing, right? So often the things that we feel are selfish end up being selfless. Because if you don't take the time to care for yourself and give yourself the space to fill yourself up to make sure that you have the energy for the people that you want in life, you show up empty for them.
Yeah.
And that's no good for you and no good for them.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people struggle with is kind of being, selfish in the right ways. Your health is something that you should be selfish about, because you want to help other people. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so after being in the industry for 15 years, is that right? 15?
A lot. 2006 was when I started. Yep.
So what would you say are the biggest perks of being an advisor and pursuing, being a financial planner? Like, why do you do this as opposed to anything else you could be doing?
Yeah. So the way that we do planning here now, and it's definitely been a search and a process for me to find doing this process. I'm forever grateful to George Kinder for creating the Evoke process. And there are other processes for kind of the life planning style, but it's the one that I know and love. When you really get to listen to people and really get to see who they are as human beings and help them feel what matters most to them and see where they want to go and where they want to grow, and you watch them do it, to me, this job is not a job any longer. It becomes a calling.
Wow, that's awesome. So do you think most financial planners feel that way, or do you think you were able to create something kind of special in your own life to make it feel like a calling,
I don't know how to answer that for other people. I mean, I could see, like, to me, if I was operating under the 1933 Act, where I had kind of had product I needed to, was kind of beholden to, and was more about like what I'm going to sell versus helping my client, that would not be for me. Now, there are people who may love that and may find great value in it, and it may be a calling for them still. I don't know, right? But it's just the way that we do it here is the way I love to do it, and I'll continue to do it until I'm no longer an advisor.
So when you aren't being a financial advisor, what do you like to do for fun? I know you said surfing, but what are the things you like to do in your own life?
Yeah, so surfing every morning is definitely a part of it. The next biggest thing for me is time with my family. So my wife Amanda, she's amazing, and then we have two boys, Daxton, who's 2, and Lucas, who's 8. Just spending time with them and trying to be as present as I can with them, so they grow up to be great human beings, is a big part of my life. And so, like, this morning we were sitting in the front driveway watching the trash trucks go by, because every Friday is like Christmas morning for my 2-year-old right now. It's all about trash trucks. So it's just, wherever they want to do it and however they want to play, I want to be there.
So in closing here, what advice would you like to give to college kids or new advisors? It can be career advice, life advice, financial advice. What advice would you like to give to advisors entering the industry right now?
Yeah. Okay. So if you want to go find a registered investment advisory firm to work with, and you start interviewing with them, the first thing I would do is ask if they already have a client service associate.
Nice.
Because and let me define what that means. Client service associate essentially means like the person who helps do the paperwork and maybe keeps the data clean and maybe like does some of the office admin type work and all of those things. Really important job, a very important job. But if they don't have that already and they're hiring you to be the associate advisor, I hate to tell you, you will be the client service associate right away, because it's what they're going to need to have filled, right? So find a firm where you can go grow as an advisor, where they want you to learn how to be an advisor. And that basically means make sure they already have someone handling what we would call the back office work already. I'm not saying you don't have to learn how to do it, because you should. So if on a Friday afternoon you need to help out with paperwork, you know what you're doing and you know how it works. You should know how everything works, but you don't want that to be your primary job. That's advice I would give if you're searching for something. For just life in general, just I would say stay curious, be patient. Don't expect things. It takes a long time to build a career. It's okay that you go learn in other places, but be curious and continue to learn. And if you do that and be interested in other people, you'll do great. And don't be scared to reach out to people for help. You don't have to have all the answers. I thought for a long time that I had to have all the answers. I had to know where to go. By building community and by being curious and asking questions, you form networks that pay off in ways that you just don't understand.
Yeah. So kind of one more question off of that. How do you build community? How do you build a community as an advisor? I mean, how should you make relationships with other advisors in your local area? And should you join NAPFA? Like what should you be doing as a young advisor?
Yeah, both good options. Like if I was a young student looking to figure out where I want to go with my career, reaching out, finding out first of all what type of a firm you want to work with in the future, and then reaching out to those types of firm owners and be like, hey, I'd just love to learn how you got into your career and how you got where you are and what's happened. Very similar to this podcast, isn't it? What got you there? Because eventually they're going to turn the script on you and be like, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you can talk about that. The other thing is like for getting into the career, be curious. Like go above and beyond. Go learn how to use e-money now. Go learn how to use Money Guide Pro. Whatever those things are that people want to be using in firms. So you can go in and say like, I'm already kind of proficient in this stuff, right? Twitter's a great place as well because like FinTwit, there's a lot of people sharing a lot of stuff on Twitter all the time, and you can start following people and paying attention to who they talk to, and then start chiming in on those conversations, right? Your perspective is valid.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I really appreciate it. I've actually got to watch quite a bit of your content already, so for me, this is kind of a treat. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me.
If you liked what you just heard, please like, comment, and share. This is Vincent Pacillo, producer of the MSUWMA podcast. MSUWMA, or Michigan State University Wealth Management Association, is a student organization part of the Eli Broad College of Business located in East Lansing, Michigan. Our mission is to inspire and educate the next generation of financial planners. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please check out our channel on all platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcast. And check out our social media at MSUWMA and MSUWMA.com.